of victory and the agony of defeat.
Great ball around the corner, Petticini. He beats them all. Junior Polar out wide, bumped away from Trindle. Sharks coming through. None of them can hold this.
Hello and welcome to a special episode of the Tip Sheet Podcast. I'm your host, John, also known as 4020. Currently on my lonesome, as you can tell by the lack of portraits in the picture with me, but not for long. I will be joined by my regular co-host and great mate, 60s, also known as Craig, as well as a couple of special guests this week because it is a special episode where we break down the upcoming junior representative season. Got Steve Georgallis and AJ Lucatonio set to join our recording this week for an all angles, all sort of 360 degrees, massive depth of breadth coverage of the junior representatives across the Lisa Fiaola, the Tarsha Gale, the Harold Matthews, and of course the SG Ball. So all four grades getting put under the lens as the Eels look to, well, I say go one better. They won two of the finals last year and lost a third in heartbreaking extra time circumstances, but setting the table for absolutely massive seasons across all four under 17s and under 19s grades in the men's and women's. And of course, before we do get there, quick shout out to the sponsors of the Tip Sheet in Parramatta Leagues Club and Star Partners Real Estate, Auburn, Rowan and Parramatta. And it could be not more relevant for Parramatta Leagues to get a shout out here, not just to home the Eels, but they are a massive underwriter, massive funder of the Junior Rugby League in Parramatta, subsidising registration, helping with the referees, and providing a number of other financial assistances to the district. So doing wonderful things for Junior Rugby League, and that all feeds in to the junior representatives, which then feeds into the NRL and NRLW. So it is the lifeblood of not just rugby league in general, but for the Parramatta Eels in particular. So without further ado, I will now throw it over to our very first special guest, Steve Georgallis, as he joins myself and Craig to talk about the wrap-up from last year, the two grand final victories in the Lisa Fiaola and Tarsha Gale, as well as how the Harold Matthews fared and the SG Ball's heartbreaking loss there in the grand final against the Roosters, before looking forwards to the upcoming season and what lies ahead for all four grades.
The start of the junior rep season is upon us, and with the first round taking place this weekend, we're pleased to say that we're joined by the man who wears the dual hats of Eels Elite Pathways Coaching Director and NRLW Head Coach. That's Steve Georgallis. Steve, welcome once again to the Cumberland Throw.
No worries. It's an interesting thing that we were just chatting about before, about the fact that it's been so long since the Pathways season finished, and now it's back on again.
Yeah, and we're just going to try and have a little tiny bit of a look back at last year, but we really want to focus, if we can, on what's ahead for us.
Massive season coming ahead, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So firstly, last year the four junior rep sides all qualified for finals football. 3 played on grand final day, and both of the girls' teams emerged with the title, even allowing for the heartbreak of the SG Ball loss. You must have seen it as a really successful year for the club.
Yeah, I think, when you improve every year, and last year was an improvement on obviously 2024, and the two victories in the girls' teams, they had to beat the Bulldogs, which were the number one team, and I think in the Fiaola, pretty sure the Bulldogs hadn't lost a game. And then we beat them in the semi and then went on to win it. And then the same with the Tarsha Gale. I mean, the Bulldogs were favourites and they beat them and went on to win it as well. So it was great for those two teams, and obviously a first for our club to win the 17s and the 19s, the Fiaola and Tarsha Gale. And of course, who can forget the SG Ball last year? It was heartbreaking. I really felt for that team because I thought that team was the best team in that competition, and they probably deserved to win it, the way they played week in, week out. But rugby league, that's the bounce of the ball, and
any given game, isn't it?
Yeah, and as Mitch said, it's just the way it is. Sometimes you win games in the last minute, and sometimes you lose games in the last minute. And unfortunately, they lost it in the minute. And I thought with all the injuries that the Harold Matts had, and I thought Josh Hodgson did a really good job, you know, and out of that team, you know, we were struggling for forwards, and Steve Nunn and Curtis Brown come out of that team, which is, you know, they're great players for the future. And, you know, obviously, look, going forward, I think in the men's side of the competition, you know, we're looking for middles, and there's two young and up-and-comers. You know, obviously one will be in the ball team, you know, and one's still learning his trade in the Harold Mats this week. So overall, you're right. I thought it was really good for us. It's going to be hard to emulate what we did last year, obviously in the female side, but doesn't mean we can't do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and just the standards that come with Parramatta Juniors are that high, isn't it? That you're trying to set. Like, obviously, you can't win a grand final every year, but the expectation is you're going to go deep in the finals. So
yeah, I mean, even when I was playing junior football back in the 80s and 90s, Parramatta was always the team that you would expect to be in the finals. So there's a lot of pressure. But again, you know, the coaches that we've got, the pathways systems that we've got in place, the structures that we've got in place, allow the players to play their best football. And, you know, bar injury, you know, we're looking to have a successful season again.
And just on that, before we talk about like some of the grades in isolation, you mentioned about the coaches. This pre-season with the NRL, we've seen players who are still eligible for age teams like the Flegg and the SG Ball get time with the NRL team, and they've spent basically the entire NRL pre-season with them. How are they able to drop back to age teams? What makes it possible for them to be able to drop back to age teams if they haven't spent too much of the pre-season with them?
Yeah, well, when I first came here 2 years ago, part of my mantra was to make sure that players that are playing in our pathways or in our junior competitions, representative teams, that the same language, the same structures of the preceding team that's in front of NRL, and be obviously the SG Ball, Harold Mats, the development squads, Jersey Flegg, that they would be playing similar, using the same calls, structures, so that when they go from grade to grade, is not too much of a change. And then I did that with the NRLW. I'm lucky I'm the NRLW head coach, so I'm able to make sure that all that, filter from the top, that all our coaches are, you know, running the same plays, calls, structures. Unfortunately, Ryan Walker, he's got two hats, so he's trying to do the NRLW stuff with his Tarsha Gale team and development teams. Then he's got to jump back to the boys' side and do that. And so there's different calls between the girls and the boys. So, and I suppose it's the same as me. I've got to remember both sides of the. But you know, when Jason Rolls came in, that was one thing that he was big on. You know, making sure that the pathways, the structures, you know, the way we play, the calls, they were all the same, so that there was a progression. So that if you played in Mats and you might just say you were going really well, and then all of a sudden you're in the SG Ball, and then you're in Jersey Flegg at the end of the year, it'll be just a similar for you, and not as much pressure on you that, you know, everything would be the same, the calls would be the same. There's nothing worse than, you know, the call being different in the Harold Mats, and then as you're getting through, it changes. It's very hard to adapt, but I think that's why players can go up and down, and so they can just focus on their footy.
That proved pretty important last year too in that three-tier progression, because we saw SG Ball players turn out in that grand final, then play Jersey Flegg, then go all the way through to a grand final qualifier in New South Wales Cup. So having those universal calls and systems in place obviously helped a lot, getting those players installed rapidly. Now, you mentioned the coaches, so let's have a chat about them. Josh Hodgson and Mitch Lewis return as fixtures in the Harold Mats and the SG Ball respectively. They'll coach the 17s and 19s. However, there's been some changes to the coaching staff in the female pathways. You mentioned Ryan Walker does a tremendous job at the club, and listeners of our podcast be very intimate of his history at the club, having great success in the female pathways. He moves up from the Lisa Fiaola to the Tarsha Gale, so again from 17s to 19s, which allows James Reid to be appointed as the Lisa Fiaola coach. He's the newcomer to this setup here. So what can you tell us about James Reid and what he'll bring to the Eels pathways?
James is quite lucky because he was involved in the Lisa Fiaola as the assistant coach to Ryan. And he knows a lot of the girls that are coming through. Has been involved, and he's also from the Parramatta club, one of our junior clubs, and so he knows the area. He knows the girls that are coming through. What he'll bring, he's probably a different type of coach to Ryan, but again, I've worked a lot with him, as I do with a lot of the coaches, and he's quite calm. He's good with his delivery, and he's getting to understand, about representative coaching. So he'll progress, but it's a great. He's very excited about it.
As fans, we get so hyper focused on the talent development aspect of players, junior pathways, elite pathways. It's a filter all the way through to the NRLW. It is easy to forget on the other side of the coin, it's also a development ground for coaches. So seeing someone like James come through, this is going to be progression for him now, going from assistant coach to head coach, learning the ins and outs of being the overall manager of the squad.
Yeah, no, definitely, and I think it's good. Just it just sends a message out to all the junior league clubs as well that although we do have full-time people here, in our coaching structures, and that there's still an opportunity for those coaches, and if they're good, to progress in our system.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's quickly go through those teams as we talked about before, their 2025 season and what lies ahead in 26. So firstly, that talented Harold's Matt side, they bowed out in the first week of the finals after surrendering a lead late in the match. You talked about the heartbreak at the SG Ball. There was also that heartbreak in that first week of the final series for them. When we were talking before, you talked about how they were really hit hard by injury. Consistency was a problem for them last year. Was that a major factor, that the injuries that they suffered during the season?
Yeah, I mean, you definitely don't want to talk about that's the reason why we lost, because we had injuries in our depth. But they did have a lot of injuries, and everyone knows that predominantly forwards win games and backs decide by how much, and that's where we struggle with our forwards. And like I said before, the lining was that Steve Nunn and Curtis Brown, the kids probably that we didn't think were going to be in the top 13, ended up being in the top 13 and progressing and playing some really good footy.
Yeah, and of course you mentioned Curtis was only 16. I think we didn't see him till I think the back half of the season because of injuries as well, and he did extraordinarily well when he was called in for such a young fella too.
Yeah, that's right. And I think, as you said before, consistency, week in, week out, and you're going to get that with 17-year-olds. So,
yeah.
And that's just part and parcel. But then when you add the injuries in, and then different combinations and different team every week, you can't get that consistency as well. So, and it's only a 9-week competition.
Absolutely.
That is something we always bang on about, is that you can get so far behind the 8 ball. Obviously, they made the finals, but we've had other seasons where you lose the first 2 games and suddenly you're clawing tooth and nail to try and get back into the hunt. So, 9-week seasons in the junior reps, while it helps for the cover, it's a busy year in rugby league, don't get us wrong, it goes by in the blink of an eye. So,
and I thought Josh Hodgson did a great job. Like, there was points there where they weren't going to make the finals, and I think they had to win the last 3 or 4 in a row to make the finals. He would have learnt a lot from that, and that was obviously his first full year as a head coach. And again, he's what you see from Josh is his type of coach is very calm.
Yeah.
He delivers his messages quite well, but he can be stern when he wants to be. But he's I think the biggest thing with Josh is he's on his way to learn about going from player to coach, and I think he's doing a good job.
Yeah, he just watching him, I guess from afar, from his work on the side, like if you're talking to players on the sideline or after the match, he just looks like he's got a great rapport.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And of course, the players respect him. He's played a lot of NRL and played for his country, so that helps as well as a coach.
Let's bring the lens back into 2026, or into focus on 2026 for the Harold Mats. We're through the trial season now. Had a bit of a mixed bag there. Strong victories over the Sharks and Panthers bookended a pretty physical loss to the Bulldogs. They had a very strong second half against the Eels. There are a handful of returning players in the team which definitely boast some strike. But building on your question, Craig, where they struggled with consistency somewhat last year, and obviously injury was a factor, how do they achieve greater consistency this year in 2026 beyond just being healthy?
Beyond being healthy?
Yeah, which is the easy one there. That's the little layup one there, because obviously there is some luck with injuries.
Yeah.
And
I've been to a lot of the Harold Matts training sessions out at Eric Twiddle Stadium, and they, it's a new group, with obviously a splash of players from last year, but I've just watched them grow and, combine together as a unit, and I think that'll help with their consistency. They're just finding their voice now, and I know it's round one, so they've got obviously 2 or 3 more days of prep before they play that game against West down at Kirkham Oval, but I just believe that what Josh has got the players doing every week at training, I think will help with that consistency. Most coaches will tell you it starts at training, and you basically play the way you train. And I think their training sessions have been consistent, so hopefully that'll make their games more consistent.
Classic footyisms, the separations in the preparation.
Yeah. It was. The trials are interesting because I thought there was only one period of time in the Bulldogs game where they lost direction a little bit. I think it was like the third quarter,
yep.
Something like that. And it was just a matter of, I don't know, it was almost like they lost their shapes or what have you. But when they were sticking to obviously what they've been practicing at training, they looked quite impressive. Well, like a lot of played with pace.
Yeah, I mean, trials are always hard.
Yeah.
And sometimes you've got players going on and off, trying to give players the best opportunity for them to make the squad. So it can be difficult. And for a fact that even in the NRL or NRLW, 1 week you're playing a trial, they don't go too well, and then round one they win, and everyone goes, "Well, I didn't see that coming." And that's trials.
That is trials, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess they're an interesting process too, because you've got players who, in their mind, they're also thinking, "It was my last chance to impress."
Yeah, and they might overplay their hand, and that, on the flip side, that the team they're playing, whether it be the Bulldogs, who else do we play? The Sharks and the Panthers. They've got players as well trying to do the same thing. But I thought we played. Like you said, we played in patches and we're looking for that consistency, but I thought against the Panthers we got that, which was good, leading into round one.
So moving on to the SG Ball, we talked about their undefeated regular season and being devastated by that grand final loss, but many of them then turned around and performed strongly for the Flegg side when they were called up, and then even the New South Wales Cup team. Is that sort of progression, and we're talking about like ultimately players like Ryder Talangi, Lorenzo Talatona, Lockie Kanaikas and Isaiah Funa Iuta, even going into an NRL pre-season, those players. Is that sort of progression more important than taking a Pathways title?
The players will probably say the Pathways title, but us...
The coaches might have a different view on it?
Yeah, but us as coaches, for us, that's part of the process, winning and losing. But our job is to make sure that the players are learning week in, week out, and then that when the opportunity arises, they can grab it. And so those players that you just mentioned have grabbed those opportunities, and as they go higher in the grades, and they're playing that football that we need them to be playing, and we all know we understand it's a triangle. There's a wide base, but to get to the NRL, it's the apex, the top of a triangle.
Yep.
So I just think that yes, it's disappointing that they lost but it's part of their growth. But for us, it's all about them getting to the top of their game, which for us in the men's it's NRL, and for the females it's NRLW.
And it must have been, for you and the other coaches, really gratifying to see that on the back of that SG Ball heartbreaking loss, they didn't, kick around and mope. They went to the Jersey Flegg, they went to the New South Wales Cup, and they progressed. They, literally in season, got their heads down, got back to playing footy.
And that's one thing I love about the pathways and the players that we have. They just love playing football. They love talking football. They just love playing football, and they're passionate about the game. And if they could, they wouldn't train. They would play 3 times a week, which is what I would do.
Do the coaches ever have troubles getting them off the field at the end of a session? If they start throwing the footy around and just enjoying themselves after extras?
Yeah, consistently. Yeah. And obviously all our strength and conditioners, they either need to get them in the gym or need to have their hour break, make sure that they're, getting hydrated and make sure they're getting their protein and all that stuff before they do weights. But they would rather be sitting out in the field kicking the footy around.
We mentioned the expectations and the standards set for the Eels in junior pathways. 2023 premiers in the SG Ball, 2025 grand finalists. In that vein, there's no glossing over the talent in this SG Ball squad, the 2026 class. It features talented match graduates, returning ball players, and some seriously quality recruits. Finals football is obviously a goal, but same season transition to flag must be on the agenda for a significant number of the squad as well.
Yes. Are you putting a lot of pressure on Mitch Lewis again?
Yeah, no pressure, Mitch. But it is part and parcel of the territory of the Parramatta Juniors, isn't it? And also, we saw him in the trials. I mean, it wasn't a perfect trial season, but we saw some genuinely impressive outings. And knowing the talent that was there from the 25 class that in junior year, now senior eligibility, knowing those graduates and the recruits, it looks like a very good squad.
But it is a very good squad. And again, in relation to how they go, I think, Mitch is a good coach. His experience, again, but it'll affect any other team in the competition. Injuries can affect you. But I think if they are healthy, they'll go, I'm assuming they'll go deep into the finals, but I'm not putting any pressure on Mitch.
Yeah.
If I had to sort of qualify how he coached last year, I felt like the team just played a very professional brand of football relative to 19s. I thought they just played really good, solid professional footy, which you don't always see in the juniors.
I think that they're the perfect example of a team that they're either going to win or lose. So what I mean by that is they're the masters of their own destiny. So they'll win a game, but the opposition is not going to beat them. They'll beat
They'll be the
themselves.
contributing factor to the loss.
Yeah, the loss. Yes.
Mm-hmm. And really, the 2 losses that came in the final series after going undefeated was really they could look in the mirror and go, "This is the reason why we lost."
Yeah. And you probably go back to that last trial that they played. I think they got beaten in Penrith.
Yes.
About
A lot of mistakes.
Yeah, a lot of mistakes and things like that. And you're happy that happens then, because you can fix that up going into round one. So, and as I said before, they're the type of team that, I hope not to see it, but they're capable of beating themselves.
Well, you know what? There was a part of me that was glad to see that, because I thought they were absolutely overpowering their opposition in the first 2 trials.
Yes.
And I thought, no, that's a good reality check for them, that it can go wrong in a game,
and you don't want them to have a reality check, but that's the way you have to look at it. No one means to make an error, no one means to miss a tackle or drop a ball, but it just might be a focus thing from some of those younger players that have come up from match to ball. So no one wants to lose a game, but if you want to lose a game, trials are probably the best.
Absolutely. So after losing to the Central Coast Roosters in week 1 of the finals, the Lisa Fiaola team won 3 straight matches during that final series, including disposing of the powerful Bulldogs in the preliminary final before defeating the Roosters in the decider. What do you attribute that incredible surge that they had through that final series?
I think it was a funny thing. Like we talk about earlier on in the season when they were playing, and the Bulldogs were the best team, and they beat us quite convincingly. And then their progression from that game every week to when they played the Bulldogs again, they improved every week. Consistency, the way they played, and they got better and better and better to the point when they played the Bulldogs again, they had the confidence that they were a better team. And all they had to do, and I remember Ryan saying, is we've just got to stay in the game. We can't let them go back to back. All right, so if they score, we need to score, or we need to be the next team that scores. And they never did, to a point where they got in front. And they were coming, and obviously the Bulldogs were coming back in that semi-final, and they held on, but they had the belief that they could go toe-to-toe with that team, and they did. And, you know, it was some really good coaching. He coached to the players' ability that he had in the team, and they played as a team. And they deserved it, and obviously saw in the grand final the way they played as well. You know, they got even better from that game to the grand final.
Well, I guess there was always going to be, I think, the greatest challenge after they beat the Bulldogs in the qualifying final, in the preliminary final, was that their grand final.
Did they overexert for that one? Yeah.
And to see how they performed then in the grand final was really a massive tick for the players individually, but also the coaching team.
Yeah, and again, you know, we've got James, or we call him JJ, James Reed, who was part of that coaching staff. You know, and obviously all the coaching staff, we don't mention them, but the assistants, the strength and conditioners, the managers, you know, the welfare, all that, they all play a big part. But I think the best thing about that I've noticed with the Pathways teams is that everyone's connected and everyone cares about each other. So you see that when they're playing.
Yep.
So looking at Lisa Fiaola again in 2026, based on their pre-season training, their trial form and the composition of the squad, which does feature a number of returning players, probably more than you'd expect in a 17s grade. Usually there's a high turnover rate. What do you see as the strengths of the 2026 Lisa Fiaola team? And what would the coaching staff want to see from them? And will likely be a tough opening away game against the West Tigers. You mentioned out Camden Way, Kirkham Oval.
Yeah, I think again, you're right. This team on paper is a quality team. There's a lot of teams in the Lisa Fiaola that are going to be better from last year, and there's a lot of teams in the Fiaola that will have 15, 16 development teams coming through now at that age of under 17s. There's a lot of pressure on this team, obviously, to go back to back. Are they capable? Oh yes, they are very capable of doing it. But again, there's a lot of other good teams, you know. So in the Fiaola. So we're hoping that obviously they're in top four at the end of the season. We're expecting that to happen, and in the finals, they've just got to play their best footy.
We didn't mention it at any point, but it's a tough opening slate for all the junior rep teams. It's essentially a month on the road, first 3 to 4 games on the road for the boys and girls. So get through that with a couple of wins under your belt, you're positioned pretty well in that run home.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, as I said before, the kids just love playing footy. So whether it's away or at home, they just want to play footy. I mean, they've had a long 2-3 months pre-season. They can't wait to play footy.
Look, last year we summed up the season for the impressive finish to the Tarsha Gale competition that the Eels had by declaring that they found their identity as a team. And I mean credit, obviously, to the coaching team, Shah, who's she's moved on to the Panthers now, so they've got a good coach there.
She's actually moved to the Bulldogs.
Oh, has she?
Yeah. I think she went to Panthers, Harvey Norman, and now she's moved to the Bulldogs.
Ah, okay. Yeah. So she's actually not going to stay with the Panthers, or is she?
No. I think she's involved with the Bulldogs, Tarsha Gale, and possibly the Harvey Norman over there.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, interesting. But moving on with this finding their identity as a team, we felt that was very much a factor. But obviously also there were some impressive individuals, because you quickly moved up a number of those players into the NRLW squad, and we saw the likes of River Lee, Tess and Fontaine make their NRLW debuts. And that's not to forget the host of other Tarsha Gale graduates who played in the Harvey Norman women's competition at the conclusion of their
Desperately
season.
unlucky not to get through to the finals there as well.
Yeah,
mate.
yeah.
That was crazy.
Why did that? I mean, do you agree with us in terms of like that they did find their groove late in the season? And if so, what brought that about?
Yeah, no, you're definitely right. They found their groove, and that they were very much, I think, like the Lisa Fiaola, where they got better and better every week. Shah did a great job, and her coaching staff as well did a great job with that team, and they just got better every week. Every week they played. I think they had 1 or 2 games there where they were a bit disappointing.
Middle of the season, they hit a bit of a rut.
Yeah, and I remember Shah talking about the physicality of the game.
Yeah.
And, and Shah challenged him, that physical part of the game. And I think that's where they improved. And then obviously the physical part of the game allows you can be talented, but you've got to enjoy the whack, the contact,
Rolling up the sleeves,
rolling up
and
the
getting the shoulder
sleeves,
stuck in, yep.
doing all the dirty work. And I think once they knew they could do that, and which is a hard thing, realising there's always that, you're always frightened of, putting your head in the wrong place and things like that when you're defending. Once they knew that they could do that and they were confident with it, they got better and better every week. And then it allowed them, obviously, to progress quite quickly.
The round 9 regular season finale against the Bulldogs, that was the lightning rod game, I thought, where that physicality, the one we'd sort of circled and made a point of emphasis, came to the fore. And I think that's when they found their identity and sort of rolled that through the finals.
Well, the Bulldogs were a very physical team themselves, and you always felt that if you could match their physicality, that you could probably beat their condition.
Yep.
Yes,
and probably their skill as well.
Yeah, I would think that we were a much fitter team than the Bulldogs. So, that's what we're talking about, the same thing. We match their physicality, and once you do that, we're going to go and obviously hold the ball.
Yeah.
You're going to come over the top of those teams, and I think we saw that in the finals, and we also saw that in the grand final. I mean, we sort of didn't realise that the score at the end was quite convincing in the Tarsha Gale.
Yeah.
I can't remember what the score was.
So week 1 they overran the Sharks,
Yep.
32-12. Followed that through to week 2 where they went out to Penrith and beat them convincingly 28-14. Then into the grand final qualifier, 18-8 against the Bulldogs, so that was a very solid win. And then 28-16 against the Roosters Indigenous Academy in the grand final. So double-digit wins across the board there.
Yeah, and I think some of those games they were behind as well. So I'm pretty sure they were behind.
The Penrith game, I think they went blow for blow for a bit as well. So yeah, it was a very good final series. Very good.
I mean, we talked about those players that you elevated straight up to NRLW, and River Lee was she shone the year before. Fontaine, she's back again in Tarsha Gale, but that's obviously because it gives her football leading into the NRLW season. If she's age appropriate to play there, well, why not?
Well, the majority of my NRLW team would play if they could.
Yes.
Yeah,
mate.
yeah.
Just like playing footy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so it's really important.
It's ditto for Lincoln Fletcher and Ryder Talangi in the SG ball.
But also Tess McWilliams was an interesting study because I thought she just continued to build through that Tarsha Gale season. To me, you could see, okay, there's a player there early in the season, but then you talk about the physicality. I thought she was one that really embodied that physicality.
She carried the banner.
Yeah, really carried that banner.
There's no doubt the strength of that Tarsha Gale team was their forward pack.
Yeah.
And there's, that physicality was led by Tess and River.
Yeah.
And when they were playing together, you knew that the opposition, they didn't like it.
Yeah, absolutely.
We got the Bruce brothers on the boys' side. The Smash sisters, something like that. They were just so physical and so dominant. So again, that brings us into our look at the current season. And like their brothers in the SG Ball team, there would be high hopes for this Tarsha Gale side. On paper and based on trials, it looks like there's going to be some serious competition for places on a week-to-week basis. Is this going to be horses for courses? Is that how you see it, or are you going to see some starters emerge and lock down their spots?
It's a hard one.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of players in that team that could possibly go on. I don't know if we'll get the same as what we did last year with obviously Tess, River and Fontaine going all the way through to NRLW.
Yeah, because that's a big achievement it's a big achievement for one player in a season, let alone to have three players
and
do
then
it.
not be out of their depth as well, playing NRLW. Doing a good job as rookies.
Yeah, that's right. I can see a lot of those girls playing Harvey Norman though.
Yeah.
And we had I had a chat to them last week, and I just told them, your focus is Tarsha, Gale, and don't worry about those competitions that follow at the end of the year.
That'll figure itself out later on.
And if you're playing good football, and they're a very talented team, and that's one thing I did say to them. We're all talented players. You got so far. I said, but hard work will get you the rest of the way. So you keep working on your game. Make sure your diet's right. Make sure there's no outside influences that are taking you away from your dreams of playing higher grade football, because they're at an age, 18, 19, where there are a lot of distractions and a lot of sacrifices you need to make.
That Harvey Norman women's team, we don't have a Jersey flag competition, but the Eels have almost treated it like an under-21s, haven't you? Like in terms of giving the younger players a run in the Harvey Norman.
There's no setting up pathways if you're not playing your best players in the competitions and you're not giving them a pathway. And I think that's why our retaining of those players is so important, and allowing those players to progress and giving them, there's no use putting blocks in their way of the older players, because realistically I'll send a few of the older players back that can't play that weekend. So that gives them the experience. But the younger players, they're the future. They're the future of the club, and we saw that last year with a few of those younger players coming. And don't forget, you got Lindsay Tui, and who also was a junior that's come through our pathway system.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess we've been blessed with some of those early pathways players that have made that step up. And as I said, it is such a young Harvey Norman team as well, made up of the players from the last couple of years with that. Stephen, I also want to just say how fortunate we are that when you have someone like Shah that moves on, but then Ryan Walker, just simply slots in there, and as you said, then we have his assistant able to take on the Lisa Fiaola. But given the experience that Ryan's had, and he's been the Tarsha Gale coach in the past as well, so it's a blessed position to be in.
And again, that's a plus for this club, that they still want to stay here and coach, hopefully they all have aspirations to go higher as coaches, but to want to stay at a club and want to be here for the players, I mean, that's really important. Yeah,
absolutely. Finally, Steve, we want you to quickly put on your NRLW.
It's a ways out still. We've got some questions.
And we're not going to dive too much in NRLW because we'll talk to you as we get closer to that season. But because the Eels have secured some exciting talents, we really want to talk to you about them, being like Jasmine Morrissey, Jade Hedigan, Lane Morgan and Keely Joseph. What will each of those players bring to the Eels NRLW program this year?
I think depth. I think that's one thing we've lacked. My first 2 years here is depth. And obviously with the new rule change of 2 supplementary players, that's going to help. 26, having those 26 players plus your 4 dev, that's 30 players that you're going to be able to choose from. Obviously last year we had a few injuries at the start of the season, pregnancies, all those things that can add up. And all of a sudden you have your depth to 19 players.
On the paper,
Yes. So I think those players are going to bring depth. Keely obviously will bring, she won a competition with the Broncos.
A bit of experience in class.
Played representative football. And obviously he's a very good player.
She immediately become part of the leadership team, having that background, or is that too much for a new recruit to come?
I don't think. I think it's a funny thing we talk about leadership and leadership teams. I believe everyone should be a leader, and everyone leads in their own different way. You know, some lead off the field, some lead at training, some lead in games. I think Keely's a leader by follow me. She has a great work ethic, and from what I've seen so far, the players just want to play with her.
Yep.
And then she's turned around and she said, I can't wait to play with Abby, because I think they're very similar in their work ethic.
Yep.
You know, work off the ball and, you know, the way they attack the game.
Yep.
Lane, obviously Morgan, I don't know what she's going to bring because she's a rugby union convert, but what I do know is she's played 30-odd tests for Australia, so she's a class athlete. She has played rugby league in her younger years, and she's always wants to play, and she's always asking me questions. So I think for her it'll be about where do we see her, what position she's in. But again, she'll make it. She's a type of person that wants to, and she's around that 26, 27 years of age, so she's that player that we didn't have. We have the older players, and the
two
real young,
Keely Joseph and Lane.
So her best footy's in front of her.
Yep.
Still don't know what position she'll be, but we'll work that out.
It's a blessed position for the NRLW as a competition to be in, to have elite athletes from rival football codes see NRLW as, I guess, a career opportunity for them.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, the last 2 or 3 years, the NRLW's, everyone wants to watch it now. And I have mates that, you know, might go down to the pub, have a beer, and they say that it reminds them of the 80s type of football, you know, short sides, 4v3, not too much wrestle, you know, all that sort of stuff.
Well, here's the question then for you as Steve as a coach.
Bit of physicality.
Yeah, well, here's the question for you as a coach, Steve. Does that responsibility lie with head coaches like you to keep that style of play for NRLW? Or is the temptation there for a bit more wrestle, or, you know?
I think the NRL's done a really good job of slowly taking that wrestle of 5 or 6 seconds out of the game. I don't think there's much in the men's game at the moment. I just think the men's game, everyone's so good at their jobs that, you know, it's very hard to break down teams. Whereas in the NRLW, we're still young, and so, you know, the girls are still learning the game. I think someone's played for 7 years or 7 or 8 years and they've only hit 50 games. You know what I mean? Well, in the NRL, you play 2 years, you've hit 50 games. So I think because of that, until we get to that season, I think we'll never see that. I think it will always be that fast game, and there won't be as much wrestle in our game.
Well, now another question, because you've got these both of these hats, and it's about that joy of football, because I see the joy of football in the female pathways, and I mean it's in there in the male pathways as well. But it really stays
Unbridled,
for me unbridled in the NRLW. Like, you can see how much the women love playing football, and you talked about how they haven't been overburdened. In the amount of games they've played. You've got people who are relatively new to the game, who've played another code, that are coming and joining in, and they're also the pioneers of professional rugby league for women. Is that your experience, or do you see that they have that passion and that I guess further that enjoyment of the game that might be there in, you know, younger players, and they maintain it through the NRLW, that professional game? Yeah,
they're in a really good position now, the women, because I remember at 12 we had to stop playing.
Yeah.
And you couldn't find a team at 13, 14 and 15s. There was no women's competitions, no teams. Now there is. So there is a position now that they're getting what we're talking about. You know, you're playing for 2 years, you only play 50 games. But now from 12 all the way through to your first rep games of Lisa Fiaola, 16, 17. There's development squads, there's teams, there's competitions going on. So they're getting all that footy in now. And so that these girls that are coming through now, the Fiaola and Tarsha, they will quickly overtake those that are playing in the NRLW. Because of the amount of football they're getting and the amount of, and how better they're getting week in, week out because of the amount of football they're playing.
Do you think they'll maintain that excitement about playing?
I think so. I think, given the opportunity that they have been by the Pioneers to play footy, and you see the numbers every year increase.
Participation rates
just double in some parts of New South Wales and obviously Queensland. I can't see it not being that.
There's just I've made some observations when I was sitting in the crowd with when the girls' games are on in the pathways, right? And for a start, there's a lot of yelling and squealing of support in the from teammates, or from it might be the Lisa Fiaola yelling their support for their Tarsha Gale teammates, vice versa, as well as the ones that aren't playing that particular week. But the other thing too that I hear when I'm nearby is them talking about what's happening out there and analysing, something that their team is doing well, or something we really need to start doing this or that, and it's just a real eye opener for how much the knowledge of the game for the female players has changed.
Yeah, and that probably goes back to a lot of the coaching and their passion to play rugby league.
Yeah.
It's twofold. They're like sponges. They're always asking questions. And I'd probably go back to those other two girls that we got, Jasmine and Jade. So Jade's obviously we felt like probably last year when we lost Cassie, we struggled in the halfback area. So she was probably the best halfback in the Harvey Norman. Obviously, didn't play for the Roosters, haven't made a debut, but she was 18th in the grand final.
Yes.
And Jasmine Morrissey, she's from the Gold Coast, and she gives us a little bit more depth in the outside backs. So,
and I suppose you mentioned depth, and going back to the call that injury sort of crippling your ability in the back end of the season to make a run. Check in on those girls. Obviously, you mentioned Cassie Toihiku. But Rory Owen too. They went down the same game against the Dragons. That was a rough game. Bit of a knock on wood moment, but they're tracking well for the 2026 season.
Yeah, they're both back into full training. So when I say full training, they can run. They can do their weights. We have check-ins. With the girls come in once a month to make sure that everything's going all right.
Fantastic.
Yeah, but everyone seems to be tracking well.
Well, they're such strike players. Within the team, to lose them in the, to lose both for one thing, but to lose both in the same game, that was.
Yeah.
You obviously broke some mirrors that day. Like there's something that you trod on some cracks in the footpath. Something went.
It was just the footy gods. You just said, "You're going too well. We might take this away from you."
And, last thing, I suppose, for me, a bit of pride for Abby last season with the international scene, having that.
So happy for her.
Cracking game.
Yeah. She deserved that. She really did. I've been here for obviously being my third year coaching, but the 2 years I've been here, and watching her grow as a footballer. And again, I'm not even sure if she's played 50 games yet. She'd be close to it.
She must be getting up there.
Yeah, I can't 100%. She may have got it. I just can't remember. Because it's far ago. But again, to get to where she is, and she's obviously got a big future ahead. She's, she's one of the leaders of our team.
No, still 37 caps. So
isn't that amazing?
Yeah,
she's played 37 games.
Absolute fixture for
Parramatta.
5 years. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I suppose that's. We won't get you to comment now because that's for a later chat in the NRLW. But that is the next big frontier for the NRLW, isn't it? Is expanding the competition. Making it more of a full-time proposition for the players, and
I think them not progressing this 2026 season by not adding any more teams, I think they've made the right move there.
Yes.
Because I feel like there'll be more players available.
Yeah, I think if you're talking about expansion, it's expansion of the competition in games, not teams at the moment.
Okay, because I don't think we could. I don't think there'd be too much of a gap if we put more teams in. now. But I think in 2 or 3 years' time,
For me, I think the next big frontier is going from the single round robin format to maybe expanding it.
Yeah.
Current teams, longer season, let the girls be full-time athletes.
And let the game stay quality.
Yeah,
Yes,
correct. Yeah.
Don't stretch.
Don't have a big gap between, obviously the teams that are at the bottom end of the table and the teams that are at the top end.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, be looking forward to that discussion when we maybe get some news in that front, hopefully, but that's a long way away. But Steve, as always, it's been a fantastic chat. We love to be able to talk juniors and NRLW with you in those two capacities you have at the club. And we always come away feeling more enlightened and more excited for the upcoming season. So on behalf of our listeners, our watchers too, because this will be going into a bit of a jumbo junior broadcast, massive thanks, mate.
No worries at all. And you tested my memory then, so...
You passed the flying colours. You did a great job.
Yeah, thanks, Steve.
No worries, John Craig. It was great talking.
Well, we're very grateful for that previous interview with Steve Georgallis. Great insights from the fellow who's not just the Eels Elite Pathways coaching director, but also NRLW head coach. And we move from there into what's happening for across all of the competitions, and then also across round one. And we're very pleased to be joined by AJ Lucantonio, famously of the League Scene podcast, and does some fine work with lower grades, being a commentator on bar TV sports, and also just keeping everyone up to date with junior reps, lower grades. It's a specialty area for you, mate. We really appreciate you being here with us. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks very much for having me, lads. It's always good to come on here and talk with you guys. It's a little bit unusual for me to come on and talk with other non-Roosters supporters, so I really like the differentiation when I come on here, get a different perspective. And I just want to say off the bat, thank you guys as well for all your kind words, all your support with what we do at the league scene and everything else. And it's going to be a massive junior rep season ahead, and there might be a few surprises along the way.
Yeah, well, that's what we're really going to dig into here. And just before we start with this, just another reminder that we have great support from Parramatta Leagues Club, the home of the Eels, and given all their support that they pump into junior rugby league in the Parramatta district, hundreds of thousands of dollars every year, normally around 350,000 at least, that they give to junior rugby league in the Parramatta district. So we appreciate their continued support, and also the support of Star Partners Real Estate. So AJ, I just wanted to start with having a quick chat with you about the rule changes and implementations, because you're always on top of what's
you're
going
all over
on,
this one.
especially with the work that you do with New South Wales Rugby League as well. So what's your understanding about how these rule changes will be implemented? Is it going to go across the board? Is it just going to stick with NRL? What's likely?
I'm not going to comment too much about the state leagues yet. Obviously, with the junior rep competitions kicking off this weekend, I doubt that we'll see any major changes to what's going on. You don't want to change a whole rubric of a competition midway through. So I'm going to leave that to the side for the moment. But I think we could see some of these. I think the interchanges could come down into your cup and your flag competitions. So that's something to keep an eye on about that. I think trainers will be kept an eye on as well, particularly in the senior pathways. So that's something, again, to keep an eye on as well. But from an NRL point of view, I think the trainer stuff is well overdue, because even in this full level of football, you get 3 passes a half to go onto the field, and that's way too many. And then you get lucky sometimes when you're on tackle 4, you get a penalty, and that's your loophole to stay out there an extra set of 6. So there's a lot of different intricacies around that. When it comes to the interchanges in an NRL point of view, as far as I understand it, and from people I've spoken to, if you get a foul play incident where a player is injured or can't come back, you can still use 5, even if you haven't used all 4 yet. You can still activate an 18th man, for instance, because you're still reaping a reward even though you haven't used your full 4. And again, that also comes into play if you lose another 2 to HIAs, and then
That is an important distinction. I was having that discussion with my brother this afternoon, actually, about how does the legacy or, the sort of 2025 or pre-2025 rules about, like you said, foul play and concussions play into an expanded bench. But, yeah, good to have some clarity there, mate.
And then also about that, I've seen some people raise some eyebrows about possible impacts on New South Wales Cup. I think currently the limit of playing a higher grade than going down is about 20 minutes. I might be wrong on that, but it's around sort of that 15, 30-minute mark. It wouldn't surprise me at all if we see that changed, especially around like games being played on a different day and whatnot. I just think that that's something that could be looked at, both New South Wales and Queensland Cup. I don't have anything further to add to that, but I'd like to see that change implemented. And the other things that we spoke about, I'll speak a bit more in detail about the 6 again stuff in a moment, but everything else is pretty much as it's been reported, and thank God the kickoff's staying the same for now.
Yeah, that was the big bugbear, wasn't it, for both clubs and fans about you're talking about radical changes. I've been a big proponent of the expanded bench. I like that both in terms of player welfare and coaching strategy. It opens up some new avenues. So I'm fully on board with that one. I'm a little bit more ambivalent on the 6 again expansion, but I'll give it the benefit of the doubt until we see it in action. And then the training stuff, I don't think anyone's going to complain about that after all the issues we've had with trainer interference in recent years across a number of games. Getting them cut back in their exposure to live ball situations, I'm all for. So not too bad on most fronts there.
Yeah, I'm pretty much on board with what John said there. So let's get into the 2026 season that's upon us in junior reps. And what we'll do, we'll work through the ages. And AJ, will ask you for who you are tipping as the improvers in this season, who will be the threats. Now, it's a little bit difficult because we've only had a few trials across all the teams, and those trials really are a mixed bag because you get the coaches trying to give as many players in their squads game time to work out who's going to make the final cut. And as you know, with juniors, you've got players that are trying to impress as individuals, and it's for younger players, that's a bit of a challenge to realise that in many instances, making others look good, coaches are very good at picking up players who make others look good, and they're some of the things that they're looking for, not just big individual moments. So we'll go ahead with starting with the Lisa Fiaola. AJ, we had the Eels as the premiers last year. Who do you see being as the big improvers in 2026?
First of all, I think it's very important to acknowledge we've got Melbourne in the competition for the first time. We've got a full pathway slate in Victoria, and I think that's really, really important. So I'm very intrigued to see how that Melbourne team goes this season, and I think just to a broad point of view from starting from scratch, I think that will be a very fun watch at times this season. I look at the Dragons because you got to remember 2 years ago, they were getting 90s, 100s put on them quite regularly, and they've turned it around massively. Last year, they picked up a win for the first time. They were competitive in most outings. I think that they'll improve once more. Illawarra is such an important catchment area for the Dragons. For them to miss the 8 last year in this competition, I think would have been a disappointment for them. And we all know how highly they consider themselves in that women's pathway. I think they won the Tarsha Gale a couple of years ago. And then also Newcastle. They're always up there in the women's comps. Even though they made the finals last year, I think that this team can go a step further. And again, we'll have to wait and see on that front. They looked good in the trials on tape, but again, you can only look at so much in trials when players are coming out wearing jumper 50, jumper 67.
you get some crazy numbers in the expanded trials, don't you? It's
yeah, absolutely.
Whew.
So who's going to be the main title threats there?
I think it's the top 3 from last year. I think Canterbury, Parramatta, and the Central Coast Roosters. I don't think there's much. I know we kind of pick on it for the sake of parity, but those 3 teams are the standouts for mine. Canterbury, we know what they do in this women's pathway so often. They were the form team until they took a trip to the Oats and Parramatta knocked the whack out of them in the second half. The Central Coast Roosters, they gave you girls a hell of a fright in the finals, in the grand final. And then going on to the last team I mentioned in I think I mentioned the Central Coast Roosters, yeah, Parramatta as well, sorry. Parramatta are there as well, the defending premiers. They looked good in the trial games that we saw go around. So it's going to be tight, but I think they're sort of the teams to watch. And also Penrith as well. They were in the finals last year. They gave Parramatta a good account in the first half of that finals run. So I think that those are sort of the benchmark teams. They don't really change too much, but I think they're the teams that have the benchmark sitting at the beginning of the season anyway.
Yeah, I thought Penrith have quickly got their act together in the girls' pathway because they didn't have teams in the girls' pathways just a couple of years back. And so to now be at that stage where they're finals contenders, I think they've done pretty well fairly quickly there. John, can you quickly just go through the Eels squad list?
Yeah, so
just to add in our Parramatta content there.
Yeah, one thing we noted with this squad was a surprising amount of lack of roster turnover, because in the 17s, both male and female, it tends to be the roster with the most churn. But the Eels announced their 2026 Lisa Fiaola squad. Alphabetically, we start with Armani Cook, Charlie Noble, Chelsea Falls. First familiar name there, Georgia Wanzi, was outstanding in the centres last year. Havana Cook, younger sister of Blaze and Ryder Talangi, Halo Talangi, making her club debut there. Hine Rakiti, another returning player. Isabella Bell, Kaiser Morgan Pritchard, Kavinia O'Callaghan Ahio, all returning players there. Layla Walmsley, Laura Gardner, Marley J. Paranihi Tagoa. Then you've got Ruby Enosi Tuapelotu, Riley Cash, Sarah Alamadine, Shelly Curtis, Sienna Manuo, Talili Tuavaiti, Taylor Miga, Taylor Barr, Tegan Nichols, Tamika Withers, another returning player there, Yasmin Quiroz Mapusua, Zara Kuri, and I apologise, Zera, Z-H-R-A, Zera Tautai. So that one I'm going to have to get some clarity on, but I'm sorry if I got that wrong, Zera. But that is the Eels 2026 Lisa Fiaola squad. Like I said, quite a few returning players there, which gives them a nice core to build around in terms of experience from that premiership squad, but also plenty of new faces there that we're going to get used to, Craig, in the next 2, maybe 3 months, depending how deep into the finals they run.
Yep, absolutely. Let's now move on to the Harold Matts. AJ, it was a disappointing season for the Eels in that we made the finals but didn't get past that first week of the finals, let a big lead slide late. AJ, who are your 2026 improvers?
Yeah, I was at that game. I called that final with the Eels and the Central Coast Roosters, and it just felt like Parramatta last year just never found their groove in that competition at all. It was 1 week good, 1 week cold, 1 week good, 1 week cold, and unfortunately it just turned into the cold at the wrong stage of the season. But it's going to become a theme. Penrith are going to improve. I think Melbourne, now that we have that pathway there in place, I think they're going to improve massively. Cronulla are going to improve as well. I mean, I don't like to talk regression, but I've got some concerns for my Roosters this year. In the Mats, we've had only 2 survivors from last year's squad. Charlie Webb and I think one of our edge back rowers stayed. And we got a new coach, Paul Momirovski, is in charge of that team this year.
Familiar name.
Yeah, we got a lot of. I think we have across all those squads former NRL players coaching all the.
It was very prominent in your ladies' pathways. You had a ton of former players involved there, or not former, active players as well. Sorry, like there was.
Yeah, I was going to say active players.
Yeah.
And I want to give them a rap too. Like all those NRLW girls are at every single home game, and a lot of them do travel up the coast as well.
It's very prominent when you're attending the junior games. You know, just from our Eels perspective, it was very clear that they were heavily involved, which is great to see.
Yeah. So back to improvers. I mentioned Melbourne. I think Cronulla improve as well, which will be a fun little watch there. Title threats, you can't ignore the Warriors. They've won 2 premierships in a row. They've got a full country to pick from as far as their youth is concerned. Illawarra were minor premiers last year. I think that they'll go one step further again. And then you also got Newcastle, who are the wild cards in this sort of competition. There's a couple of guys there that have aged out, but the guys that they kept that were a year younger last year, I think they have a lot of promise in there. And I think I heard you guys mention that there's a lot of guys playing a year younger in that Mats team this year.
Yeah. Parramatta got a very young squad this year, which we'll cover shortly, Craig. But yeah, in the context of that competition, I was looking at the ladder, and it is like it's a 9-week competition, but there's 17 teams now. Like the amount of, I suppose, strength of schedule volatility you can have between the 17 rosters is pretty crazy. So, I mean, it's great to see so many teams involved in the under 17s, but the ladder's just it's so big, like it's crazy.
Yeah, I know because like you get the merged teams, like the NRL merged teams, each holding a team of their own.
Exactly.
Well, the Roosters now with 2 teams across the men's pathways now with the Central Coast team
setup and the suburban setup or the urban setup.
Yeah, so and then also gets a little bit convoluted in the Central Coast pathway when we've got the regional competitions running with the Central Coast Roosters banner as well. So there'll be a lot of changes between those particular teams this year with players going up, some players, of course, if they're in that 16 bracket, dropping back down. So I'm a little bit intrigued by what we can do on the Central Coast this year as well.
I know you mentioned they've got a whole nation to pick from, but a lot of credit's got to go to the Warriors because they've hit the ground running. In the Harold Mats in particular, they've been fantastic. Not necessarily minor premiers, but being able to time their run, like you said, the 2 premierships in recent years, including the year where they ran. The Eels were one of the favourites coming in. Was it 2 years ago, Craig? One of the favourites coming in. They ran the table on 1, 2, and 3 seeds all the way through to the grand final. So yeah, they're the big ones to watch out for, I think, and that's a good call there, AJ.
And I recall watching them in the first round in 24, and the Eels put a score on them.
Yep.
But you could sense there was something much bigger with what they were going to be able to achieve, because they had moments where they threatened, and you looked at them, and at the end of the game, I thought the score didn't reflect what the Warriors were going to be capable of as they developed through the season, and that's basically how it panned out. And as you just mentioned, John, that run of taking out the 3 undefeated teams, because that was the anomaly of 24 was to have 3 undefeated teams at the end, and they just took them out one after the other and really disposed of them too. It was if you were one of those undefeated teams, it was an ugly result to end the year. So, John, can you take us through that Eels Harold Matt squad, please?
We sort of anticipated it, but a lot of turnover. It's a young squad, so a lot of our first-year eligible players in the Harold Mats for the Eels in 2026. Again, starting alphabetically, we go with Ali Sabra. One of the returning players there in the halves, Caleb Liata'u, Chris Swali'i, a new face, Curtis Brown, who actually featured in our chat with Steve Georgallis, Craig. Very good middle forward there in his second year of Harold Mats. Danny Abu Hamid, Dion Hayes, Divine Talafo, Elijah Al-Zahim, Flynn Manua, Hayden Bell, another returning player, excellent middle forward prospect there. Jake Capavilla, who popped in the trials on the edges there. Jaden Tapuawi, Khan Jackson, Leonard Salter. And then onto the second page, we've got Levi Perrott, Liam Martin, Larima Siu, Nixon O'Connor, Riley Packy, Salah Tamati, Spencer Sorensen, Tommy Jackson, Tyler Lama, Tyson Pulatitu, Vea Akuola, and then you got William Mamia Epa, and then Winston Tahi and Zane Watson. So only a handful of returning players there amongst that entire squad. And I think you got Caleb, you got Curtis, you've got Hayden, and I think that might be it, right, Craig? I'm just trying to think.
That's pretty close to it. I think the way it's going to work, AJ, is that I think it's this year's got a lot of 16-year-olds. So next year will be the year of probably a lot of returning players. But let's now move on to the Tarsha Gale team. Again, Eels, the premiers in that grade in 2025. So, AJ, who are your improvers?
I think Canberra make the finals this year. It's a very strong squad that they had. I thought that they were really unlucky. They just had a bad for it against. Like, Cronulla made the 8 on 10 points and the Roosters made the 8 on 10 points. I spoke so often last year about our inconsistencies in Gale. But just the for and against was the killer for Canberra. And then any one of those one-win teams, either a Souths or a St. George, to improve. As far as title threats, you can almost look across that entire ladder. But for mine, Canterbury, Parramatta, the Roosters look a very strong side this year with a lot of last year's successful Lisa Fiaola team moving into that grade. And I think I had one more team here. I had the Tigers to improve as well.
Yeah, the Tigers did. I know that they offered a bit of a challenge to the Eels in their game last year, and I thought to myself, they are a side on the rise. in
They
there.
gave us a run in the finals too.
Yes,
We had to
it was
beat
a good
them
game.
last minute.
Yeah. So I agree with the call there. John, can you run through the Eels squad for us?
Yeah, this is shaping up as a pretty good squad, both a lot of returning talent and some graduating talent from the Lisa Fiaola, setting the Eels up nicely for coach Ryan Walker. Elias Sufan in the halves returns and heads the alphabetical list there. Alana O'Loughlin, rugged back rower. Got Alicia Meza, Anika Penatani, Ava Jones in the dummy half there. Well, speaking of dummy halves, Ava Jones and Bowie Marchong back-to-back. You got Billy Va'a, Katia Duff, Christine Katoa Tongia, Cody Tuamasevi, Fontaine Tafua, who made her NRLW debut in 2025, Freedom Crichton Rapati, outstanding wing prospect there, Ire Sevilla at fullback, Isabella Papa, Jada Cook, and then onto my second page, Jessamine Aloy, Kalia Gray, Kiana Vatabua, Leonia Vey, Mere Sivo, Mitzi Cairns, Olivia Saba, Patakura Jim, Sammy Lee Gunn to Awai, Sharon Latapu, Shayo Shire Tokolich, Sualo Lafanga, Taylor Falaniko, Tia Matthews, and Zion Liga Tenise. So a lot of returning names there, Craig, or just both from Matt's from Fiaola and Gale itself, shaping up as a very good squad. It's got a great spine there. Sufan, Ava Jones, Bowie Marchong, Ire Sevilla, strong backline there. We mentioned what we got there, Tuama Seve, Crichton Rapati, and then we got Kylie Gray could play anywhere in the back on the back or the back row, but Alawai, it is a good looking team, so I expect them to play pretty deep into the competition this year.
Yeah, I think it's probably as AJ said, you're going to see a lot of the same, some very strong competition from the teams that did well last year. And I thought from the Eels' perspective, their trial against the Bulldogs was particularly impressive, considering how strong the Bulldogs are. The Eels, when they run that really fast style, especially on the edges of the ruck, really quick play of the balls, quick service from dummy half, and Bailey Marchong has certainly got the wiles out of dummy half. She creates a lot of opportunities from there. Okay, now we finally move to the SG ball, and your Roosters, AJ, caused horrific heartache for our mighty Eels.
An all-time SG ball grand final. Unfortunately, the Eels on the wrong end of the ledger, but yes, Roosters reigning premiers in the under-19s.
Yeah, but look, full credit to the Roosters, because if you look across the season, although Parramatta was very, very impressive across the season, you can say unlucky because they went through the regular rounds undefeated. It was a draw with the Roosters first time, lost to the Roosters in the opening rounds of the final series, then lost again in the grand final. So it's hard to say anything but the Roosters earned their title last year, AJ.
Yeah, we did, and I think that they've got a really good chance to go back-to-back. I'm going to call it, as I said, we've got a large number of returning players, even for round one. Like, two of our better players, Rex Bassingthwaite and Louis Lee, aren't playing. They're expected to get high minutes in our NRL trial, coming up against the Tigers, that first trial, so that's an interesting watch going forward, but a lot of the likes, Atul Seve tore shreds off you, particularly in that first final. He was very, very impressive. The two edge back rowers, Finnegan and Darcy Smith, are very impressive. I think Darcy Smith's a good chance to get an NRL debut sooner rather than later. He runs great lines. He's a great prospect. And then Eddie Kalis locking up the scrum, very famous name out Parramatta way, but very good player. So I think, again, Parramatta have got a very good squad this year, and it was that good. Chris Petteris is not even in the starting 17 this week.
Yeah, we'll get to that. We'll get to that shortly. So who are your contenders this year, AJ?
I want to start with improvers. I think Penrith are going to be a very formidable lineup this year. Last year was such an anomaly that they were really poor to watch this year. They picked up the Central Coast Roosters Harold Matts coach, Paul Franze. He will be the coach over there this year. The Warriors will improve because the talent from that Harold Matts squad comes into that side. Bishop Neal was the best player in the Harold Matts. I know he wasn't the official best player. That goes to the Roosters halfback Carter Mariko, who's moved up into our ball squad. And then also I had to improve Manly. There's a couple of really nice players here The large brothers, Onatoni and Ashton, they've been spoken about heavily in junior football. They picked up Lockie Metcalf from the Roosters at halfback. They picked up Johansson, I think, from you guys.
Yes,
He went across.
Anders Johansson, I believe, went to Manly.
Anders Johansson, yeah. So it's a very underrated squad. People talk about the rises like the Roosters and Parramatta. Manly can almost rival them, but the problem is those large brothers are probably going to move up into flag and into cup quickly, so I doubt whether they'll get enough game time under their belt. But other contenders, I had Roosters, Parramatta, and then the 2 prelim finalists from last year, Canberra and South Sydney. They've improved, adding a couple other names to that squad as well.
Beautiful. John?
Yeah, well, it's shaping up to be one of the most competitive SG ball fields I've seen in a while. Eels pretty well positioned to try and challenge for the title again, and it's going to be a very interesting spread across the 9 weeks the regular football season play out. Because your Roosters reigning premiers and going to be very hard to beat, AJ, alongside all the other teams you listed. But the Eels look like this if their 2026 squad. Billy Farnene caps them off alphabetically. Cameron Bamblett, incumbent Australian schoolboy there, number 2 off the cab. Christopher Mawala, Christopher Petrus, couple of Chris's there. Kobe McCloskey, Kobe Raven, couple of Kobe's. But COBI for McCloskey and COBY for Raven. Cyrus Bloomfield, Drew Falatolu, Epapata Tahu Apiata, Jackson Coyner, another Australian schoolboy, big recruit from Brisbane who's looked outstanding in the preseason. Giro Trey Stewart, Cordell Pritchard, Lachlan Vella, Lincoln Fletcher, Larima Rokasuka, Mason Ong, Michael Nauer, Nathan Howlett, Nicholas Kodarak, Oliver Walker, Rawi Davis, Ryder Talangi, Samuel Polly, Samuela Sorovi, Sterling Farmui, Stephen Nunn, Talon Rosati, Viliami Fafita, and Wesley Pacody. So plenty of returning players there, Craig and AJ, but a fair few graduates, and also some pretty savvy recruitment there. I mentioned Jackson Coyner, but also Sterling Farmui has popped in the trials. He comes to the Eels by way of the West Tigers. Bit of versatility playing both the halves and back row, named on the edge in round 1. And then we've got Nicholas Kodarak. Who else is a recruit there? I think Viliami Fafita maybe. And then the one that really jumped out off the tape, Craig, in the preseason was Stephen Nunn, first-year SG ball player, graduate from the Mats. We didn't see much of him last year because of injuries, but what we did see was very exciting, and no surprises that he's making that jump in his first year of SG ball eligibility.
Yes, he's really a player to watch. I'm sure he's going to be on your radar, AJ, this year. Let's now we'll get you to stick around for these Eels previews, AJ, because it's good to have that neutral voice when we're looking at.
We can get lost in the sauce sometimes. The blue and gold marinara is too strong. Yeah,
but not only that, you've got that broader knowledge base via the work that you do, that you can provide some insights that where John and I are often only seeing certain opponents once during the season, sometimes not at all until you get to final.
17 teams in the Harold Matson SG ball means, exactly. You're not necessarily seeing them all. 16 in the SG ball, 17 in the Mats.
Yeah, so it's and I know it's a passion of yours as well, AJ, to be tracking the development of players going right through the grades up to New South Wales and Queensland Cup. So we really do appreciate you being here for this. So let's start off. All of the matches this week down at Kirkham Oval, and taking on either the West Tigers in the girls' pathways or the West Magpies in the boys. And John, will start off with the Lisa Fiaola clash with the West Tigers. If you could give us the Eels team list there, mate.
Yeah, this is the afternoon block of these quartet of games, kicking off at 1:30 p.m. Like you said, Craig, Kirkham Oval out at Camden. Can catch this one on Bar TV and TCT. Eels looking like this of Tegan Nicholas at fullback. Got Havana Cook on the wing alongside opposite of Ruby Inosi Tuapolotu. In the centres, a pair of returning players there in Georgia Wanzi and Hine Rakiti. Riley Cashel partner Tamika Withers in the halves. In the front row, we've got Kavinia O'Callaghan Ahio with Ta'ali'i Tuavadi with Laura Gardner at dummy half. On the edges, Sarah Alamadine and Kyson Morgan Pritchard. Locking the scrum is Isabella Bell. And then on the interchange, Halo Talangi, Taylor Miga, Marnie Cook, and Chelsea Falls for the Eels. Extended bench, Sienna Manuo and Maui J. Paranihi Tagoa. So Eels with a 19-player team there, taking on the West Tigers, who sort of you intimated, AJ, being one of the real steady improvers in the women's side of things actually doing some pretty good work in the women's pathways. So this is a really interesting game off the sort of first cab off the rank there. How do the Eels fare in that away game trip? Because the Eels have a big block of away games to start the year in our both women's and men's pathways. Hello?
Hey, Jake, we got you there?
Oh, yeah, sorry, I thought we were going to Craig first, sorry.
It's all right, I'll just keep yapping. I'll cut in between. It's fine.
Yes, I thought we were going to Craig first. But first, I just want to say that, like, I found it really interesting that we're going with the girls' games last before the men, given that we're meant to get 35-degree heat out at Kirkham
It's going
this
to be
weekend.
warm.
So
Yeah.
it'll be warm. I expect the drink protocols to be in place.
Yep.
So that's something to keep an eye on. So instead of playing 30-minute halves, you'll probably be playing like 15-minute quarters with your 1-minute break in between. So similar sort of conditions as far as the trial games that we've been covering recently. I suspect that it's going to be a really interesting opening for Parramatta. And then obviously the priority is complete your sets, stay disciplined, contact in defence. And I think that those are some of the things that we saw in the trial games Parramatta do really well. And for the Tigers across the board, I think that they're going to be steady competition. But this Parramatta side, what we've seen from them consistently week on week on week, over the course of the trial games as well, I think that they should be too strong.
Yeah, it was an interesting set of trials that the Eels played. We talked with Steve Georgallis about it earlier in this podcast, and there was really just one period in the third quarter of the second trial where they sort of were a little bit. That was the boys' one, but the girls they just had a little bit of trouble with the Bulldogs in their trial, the second trial. But I'll tell you what, they bounced back against the Panthers, really finished that trial off strongly, and like the girls teams, like all the teams that are coming through the Eels pathways, they look to play that really fast brand of football, and get really rapid play through the middle of the ruck, and then spread that ball wide. They've got a bit of pace there. I'm trying to think, John, who it was that was playing centre in the trials, but she was certainly impressive against the Panthers. Showed a lot of toe in out sprinting the defence a couple of times. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how they go now that the trials are over and they can settle into the combinations that they're going to work with. Because, as I said, those trial games, they're just, they can be a real mix and match with the players that are out there. So it's a bit hard to predict results. You've gone with the Eels likely to win, and we're obviously going that way as well. But there's the great unknown, isn't there, when the exposed form is either a little bit of last year's players and a few trials this year. So
there's one more thing I want to make. The last sort of period of trial games, obviously we had that massive downpour in Sydney where there was a lot of rain around. We'll get onto the Magpies later, but their Howard match trial got rained out because the field at Kirkham was literally underwater. Like, it was literal. It was like playing a game of water polo out there in the second half of that game. They had to call it after a try, but they would have had to get their snorkels to finish the second half. But I think that we're going to have the contrasting conditions is something that these girls are going to struggle with to start the year, where you get those fluctuations in temperature, where you go from 35 one week to 20 the next. So it'll be very intriguing to see how they handle the conditions out there at Kirkham.
I like the spread of experience for the Eels here. It's just sprinkled across all the different positional groups. Wanzi and Rikiti in the centres coming back from last year. Withers leading the team in the halves. The prop forward O'Callaghan Ahio leading the front row there with Morgan Pritchard and Bell in the back row. A lot of new faces around that, but I think it's a good amount of experience from that premiership squad to help build into the start of this year. So I am reasonably confident as you could be for a round one game like this when there is so much unexposed form. But I do think, based on what you've said, AJ, and what we saw from the West Tigers in not just last year but the year before, where they've made clear strides season to season, year to year, this is not going to be a walkover. This is going to be a pretty good contest, I think, in round one.
Yeah, and where where I'm super confident with the Eels is their attacking capabilities. What I would want them to tidy up a little bit based on the trials is defence.
Yes.
Just got just a little bit loose in defence. But again, as I said, you're talking about combinations that aren't necessarily there, and we know how important communication and combinations are in defence. So it'll be interesting to see how that aspect of their game develops throughout this season.
I just realised. It's Charlotte Withers versus Tamika Withers in the sevens. So we have to get some clarity on whether that's a familiar connection there. We spent a bit of time with Steve Georgallis trying to figure out in the actual Parramatta squads who's related to who, because there are some common names. Like we have a Tuivasa here in this game who we believe is related to Sam there. But yeah, Charlotte versus Tamika, we have to find out whether there is a connection there.
Yeah, and we got an Ala Medine.
Yes, we have an Ala Medine, we believe younger sister of Moe in the Jersey Flag. Who else is there? Anyone else? Oh, Kaiser Morgan Pritchard, I think is daughter of Frank the Tank, yeah, and then Isabella Bell, sister of Hayden in the Harold Mats. So a lot of Halo Talangi again, younger sister of the Talangi brothers. So a lot of familial connections there.
Absolutely. So let's go into the Mats team. They're taking on the West's Magpies. John, can you take us through the team list?
Yeah, first game on the block on Saturday morning, 10:30 a.m. kickoff. Again, Kirkham Oval, part of that 4-game quartet. Eels taking on the Western Suburbs Magpies. New face at fullback here for the Eels, Liam Martin, not the Penrith back row though, but I believe he's from Newcastle, hailing that way in the one for the Eels. On the wings, you got Leonard Salter and Jaden Tapuai. In the centres, Tyler Lama and Lorima Siasiu. Going to the halves now, this is a name surname familiar to Roosters fans, Levi Perrott, but I don't think there's any connection there. And then returning for his second year, Caleb Leotau will lead the Eels in the 7. In the front row, you've got Christopher Swali'i with Curtis Brown, his other bookend, Flynn Manua, the dummy half for the Blue and Gold. On the edges, Jake Capavilla and Khan Jackson. Hayden Bell, we just mentioned that connection there between he and Isabella, will lock out the scrum. On the interchange, it's Spencer Sorensen, Tyson Puletu, Thomas Jackson and Winston Tahi. Extend the roster, Nixon O'Connor, Elijah Al-Zahim and Danny Abu Hamid. Taking on the Western Suburbs Magpies and just looking if there's any, we've got a Hopewade there, Monson Hopewade, not sure if there is a connection, but odds are it's probably not a bad bet there. There's a Finau. Yeah, no one else really jumping out there, but maybe AJ knows who to watch for in the Western Suburbs team. But yeah, another tough matchup. Eels on the road out at Kirkham Oval. And it's going to be, like you said, AJ, even early in the morning, testing conditions.
Yeah, exactly right. I think that it's going to be like a bit of a furnace out there, a bit of an oven out there out at Kirkham. But I've not really gotten a real gauge on this Magpies side yet. Obviously, they're coached by Paddy Richards, a former Para legend out there, and of course got Josh Hodgson there. And we did a post up about this the other day, and we posted about the former NRL players and the current NRLW players are involved in the coaching scene. And I think that's really important as we go through. But I do like the Eels in this game. From what I saw in the limited tape in the struggling conditions out of Kirkham a couple of weeks ago for the Magpies, they just got to get a little bit more in their go forward and get a little bit more direction out of their dummy halves. So that'll be something to watch for. And I guess Parramatta have just got to figure out what switch they want to flick at this point of the season. Because with Josh Hodgson's team last year, we saw that they struggled for a bit of consistency from time to time, and alluding to some of the pre-season reports I saw from Craig, and I think that could be a familiar theme again this year.
Yeah, I'll go for a second take where I was talking about losing track in the third quarter in the trial game. That was the Harold Mats, and it was, in retrospect, it was where there were a lot of changes at the end of the previous quarter when they took the break. So as we see in trial games, you can just get mass changes, and all of a sudden you haven't got combinations happening, and they lost all combination and go forward and structure for a period of time there. But very, very strong in the trial against the Panthers as well, and in fact really finished strongly, I thought, in that game. So.
Yeah, I think a lot of Parramatta's best play in this game would be predicated on Hayden Bell controlling the ruck. He's shown some really good ball playing skills at lock forward. And the other thing I'm going to be really keen to see is a lot of new. I mean, it's an entirely new background, as I say, a lot of new faces. It's an entirely new 1 to 5, 1 to 6 actually. But there's a fair bit of talent, as far as I understand, in that Eels backline. And if they can unlock that and give them the opportunity to succeed, it'll be a huge advantage for them if they can put those boys on the front foot. So, yeah, going to be really interesting to see how they play it out and if they can get the sort of consistency that they're lacking in 2025.
Yeah, real battle of the fullbacks there, because you mentioned Liam Martin getting the nod coming from Newcastle, but of course you've got young Siu, who was also he was outstanding in I think it was the first trial against the Sharks.
Yeah.
Just tore the Sharks to pieces when he came on, and which, in retrospect, I go, well, was that a reflection of maybe the Sharks on the wane a little bit with the way they were disposed of in that first trial? But it's been a battle for that position, and Hodgson's decided to go with Siu out in the centres. No doubt he can play out in the centres, and I think he was playing. Was he playing fullback or centre in his rugby union last year?
I've seen him in 15 in the highlights, which would be fullback, but I wouldn't be surprised he also had 12 or 13 on his back at times too. He's pretty versatile in that regard. So, but yeah, he's a dual code athlete right now between the Eels and the Waratahs, and yeah, a chance to really show out here in the centres for Parramatta.
And I think he's only 16 this year.
I believe so. I believe he is one of the junior year eligibility players. Yeah.
Yeah. So look, there's certainly some talent there. It's just a matter of getting those combinations right. And the other thing too, like I said about the girls with the Lisa Fiaola, just sorting the defence out. That's going to go a long way towards helping that consistency. Any other comments you want to make on that, AJ?
I just think it's just good to get some footy back, to be honest. I mean, we're going to get, this is our first cab off the rank for the year.
Yep.
On the schedule. So it's just be good to get some footy back, enjoy it, and really just sit down, get the black book out, mark down some names, and we can vent about throughout the season.
Yeah, absolutely. Now the Tarsha Gale. John, can you quickly go through that team list?
Yeah, in the 3 o'clock slot, the final game in the block, again, Kirkham Hove Camden on Saturday. Eels starting with Ire Sevilla at fullback. She was outstanding in the Lisa Fiaola final series last year. On the wings, we have a new face there in Kiana Vatabua, opposite of Freedom Crichton Rapati, a player who fans will be very familiar with, her exploits down the right sideline. In the centres, you've got Swalo Lafonga and Jessamine Aloy. In the halves, Samuel Gunn Ta'ai and Elias Sufan, so plenty of experience there in the 6 and 7 for the Eels. Front row, Alana O'Loughlin, Ava Jones and Shai Oroshiro Tokulich. Back row sees Billy Va'a and Fontaine Tafua on the edges. Kylia Gray locks out the scrum, the very versatile Kylia there, who's played centres, 5/8 and lock all in the same season for the Eels last year. On the interchange,
did she play prop as well?
Would have been named in the front row at one point, almost certainly. Yeah, she's incredibly versatile and a very, very good player there. Bailey Marchong leads the interchange, the dynamic dummy half. She's joined by Tia Matthews, Isabella Papa, and Christine Tongia. Then Jada Cook and Mitzi Cairns rounding out the extended roster for the Eels. Looking at that West Tigers roster, I see Danielle Seckold, who was in the Eels pathway a few years back, I believe. But beyond that, no one jumps out. Paige Attard, maybe? I was trying to see who else jumps out to me. But yeah, again, West Tigers team that's very much on the rise here. And I got to say, I'm more confident in both the Tarsha Gale and the SG Ball in terms of the known talent the Eels have here in this game. But again, that doesn't mean that you're going to walk up to round one expecting to win. The Tigers have the home field advantage here, and they've got a roster that's been building for the last couple of seasons. So it's going to be on Parramatta to minimise errors. And like you said, Craig, avoid those defensive lapses that can be so costly in the early parts of the season when you're trying to get your systems online. And that's going to be a real key to victory for the Parramatta Eels in this game.
I have it in my head that Seckold played a bit of Harvey Norman last year, not for the Eels. And I can't remember whether it was for Wenty or for Wests, but then again, I might be imagining things. AJ, it's a very strong Tarsha Gale lineup. As you said, they're going to be one of the contenders again this season.
Yeah, very much agree there. And There's an NRLW player in this Tigers side, Luamanu Leitao, the captain in 11. She made her NRLW debut last year for the Tigers, a very talented edge back rower. So I think the Parramatta's edges are going to have to be on their game there to handle her. Seckold, I don't think you're imagining things, Craig. I think you might have been onto something.
Wenty, yeah, played for Wenty in the centres. So they've got a couple of season players there.
Yeah, I remember being out at a couple of Harvey Norman games and running the sideline, and that name coming up quite frequently in the team sheet. So that's one they've got back. But this Tigers team, they made the finals last year. They were heartbreakingly eliminated in the finals last year. The field goal that was charged down, picked up by a Roosters player that would have been in an offside position. The charge down went straight to her about 5 metres in front of the ball, and she scored under the posts to win the game in the last 30 seconds. So a cruel way for them to go out last year, and they've hung on to this for a long time. So I think they're going to be eager to make a statement against one of the powerhouses.
Yeah, this is not an easy first round for any of the Eels teams, because not only is it a fairly decent away trip, it's also with, I think, 4 teams that are out to make a statement. And again, I think the Eels will be too strong, but a tough game is not going to surprise at all. And I think it's important that the Eels do get off to a good start to the season, because you don't, as we were saying with Steve Georgallis, John, you don't want to drop games in the early part of the season.
9 rounds, you just get so far behind the 9 rounds. Yep.
Yeah. And you can have a very strong team, but you can't afford to wait a few weeks before you start to hit your straps, or at least get some points on the board. Okay, now we move to the final game to preview, but not the final game on the day. John, it's the SG Ball clash between the Eels and the West Magpies. Can you run us through the team sheet?
Yeah, kicking off on the stroke of midday. So the sun approaching at zenith there. Eels look like this, with Cameron Bambutt, mentioned an incumbent Australian schoolboy. He'll have the number 1 on his back. On the wings, Lorima Rokasuka and Cyrus Bloomfield in his first year of SG Ball. Centres, Nathan Howlett and Cordell Pritchard. Howlett was a regular fixture for the Eels last year and be looking to build into a nice season here, and be good to see what we got from Cordell there in the centres. In the halves, it's a strong pairing, Talon Rosati and Lincoln Fletcher. Front row, we mentioned before, but Stephen Nunn gets the call to start in his first year of SG Ball eligibility. He'll partner Ryder Talangi in prospectively a very strong front row pairing there. Jira Trey Stewart, the starting dummy half for the Blue and Gold. On the edges, another junior year player in Michael Nauer, good edge prospect there. Sterling Farmui wins the other edge spot coming across the Eels this year. And then locking up the scrum, it's the outstanding Jackson Coyner, one of the preseason stars for the Eels. Really keen to see how he goes in the season proper. On the interchange, you've got Wesley Picodi, Mason Ong, Nicholas Kodarak, and Billy Fanene. Extend the bench, Riley Davis, who has the 14 on his back, so I'm not sure if there's some clerical stuff going on there, but he is the 14, but in the 18th man slot. Christopher Petrus and Viliami Fafita. A bit of clarity on Petrus there, Craig. I don't know if you want to offer it there, but we think he is nicked up there insofar as not missing on selection, but actually just got a minor injury. So Eels naming a very strong 17 plus free there, although Petrus, I think, not available this week. Yeah,
that's what we understand is the case, but you just don't want to risk players in the opening rounds if they've got a little bit of a niggle, because they got a long year ahead of them. It spirals
so quickly,
especially those who the planning is, once their junior rep season is over, that they progress up to Jersey Flag, and for some there's always that possibility they could go 1 or 2 grades higher during the season. So it's a long year for those who start off in SG Ball and Tarsha Gale. So you just don't want to rush into that. AJ, it is a strong Eels lineup. You've got players there that have been doing an NRL pre-season, that have been listed in the team for this week. Unlucky last year, maybe. We have to say it as Eels supporters, mate. But you've again got them as one of the contenders. So what do you make of their chances against the West's Magpies?
I think they've got a good chance, and I'll make sure to clip up the final 5 minutes of that SG Ball Grand Final just as a little gift, as a little courtesy before round 1. But jokes aside, I love this test round one for the Parramatta side because this Western Suburbs pack, I'll take you through a couple of them. Tapa Umors, Phoenix Gotne, and Havia Jr. They've done an NRL preseason with the Tigers as well. We put them on our train and trial list. The captain, Peter Ty, he's been part of the system for a while. They managed to pick up the halfback, Curtis Lakeman, back from, I think it was with Cronulla last year, from memory serves. But that's another important piece they need back. And it's all about, for the West side this year and the Balmain side, is just getting that junior base back. Because there was all the talk about a couple of years ago with that undefeated Howell match side they had with the likes of De Silva, Galvin, the Lau Lily boys, around how that they were meant to be the future of that team. Well, let's have a think about it. 3 of the 4 are gone. Well, Luke Lau Lily signed with Perth. So that's a huge chunk of that nucleus gone. So you throw in the likes of Tapa Umors, Phoenix Gotne, I reckon, has a really good chance of solidifying his place in a cup squad, potentially even a debut come the season's end with the right qualifications. But the big one to watch for me is this lock battle. Siotame Havia Jr. against Jackson Coiner. Both are very, very impressive players. And obviously Coiner's impressed a lot of you guys in the pre-season reps here. So it's going to be a forward battle for mine. I just think Parramatta have the class difference with Coiner, with Ryder Talangi, based off what he did last year. That sprinkling of New South Wales Cup is going to become so important in this age group. People, I think, are sleeping on that a little bit. Like, you get a player who's had a sprinkling of open age football, you bring them back down a little bit to the age group where they should be feeling more comfortable. Yes, it increases some pressure, but I think pressure comes good responsibility and good rewards, especially for those guys that have spent the pre-season or a portion of the pre-season with the main squad.
Yeah, it seems that the footy intelligence really goes up a notch. Just that there's like a confidence, a sense of really knowing the game a lot more. And given that there is that sprinkling of that across both teams, it makes it a very interesting contest for the first round. And there's, as John pointed out, you've got that situation for the Eels where Riley Davis was outstanding in the trials, but then you've also got Bamblett, who has also just been on fire, and he's also capable. Well, he played trials in the halves as well, so it makes it interesting to see how far down the track it is before maybe Lincoln Fletcher is moved out of the SG ball team and elevated. Will it be at a certain point during the season that is earmarked that he maybe heads into flag? Will he do the entire season in SG ball? It's that one's going to be an interesting watch. Same for Ryder, because he progressed to New South Wales Cup last year. So seeing players like that have done a pre-season coming back, it's going to be a really interesting contest to watch. That just about wraps things up in terms of the Eels preview. AJ, what games are you off to this weekend?
I get to be a spectator this week, which is a nice little bit of fun for me.
Rare luxury.
It is a rare luxury for me, and I'm gonna head out to Mascot. I'm gonna watch the Mats and the Cup and the SG Ball boys go round, and I think that Penrith is such a strong litmus test for us. And one of the things that I think, particularly in the men's grade, you want to look for in officiating is, and I know it drives a lot of people crazy, is ruck infringements. That drives a lot of people crazy. So
Yep.
you guys don't mind. What I want to do to finish off is I just want to do a quick sort of summary on what referees are looking for.
Yep.
Okay, sounds good. Yep.
So that way our understanding can be improved a little bit, because I think the main way we can get around helping officiating is consistent education. It's not through dropping people, making people accountable. That can be part of the solution, but I think the solution is just more education. And that is the best way for us as league fans to have a better idea on what's going on, but also so we cut down on the abuse and we keep junior referees in the game.
Yeah, yeah.
That's very important, particularly in this junior development squad that Gavin Badger set up. I think there's about 20 or 30 new faces this year. Like, there's a lot of new faces this year. So we're going to go through some ruck infringement stuff. So the major one...
AJ, can I just say, we've just, on our Instagram page, just put up the notice for courses for learning to referee being run by the Parramatta Referees Association. So you can actually get in touch with them if you are interested, because we don't have a game without referees. So it could be a career that people haven't thought of. If you're a young player and maybe you didn't make some of the junior rep squads, but you'd like to continue on in the game, you might be someone that's finished playing your football in A grade and you're looking to continue on as a referee. They're free courses to attend. So have a look at our social page. Have a look at the Parramatta Referees social page. Have a look at their website. And if you're interested, go and talk to them. Go and do the course, because it's, as you say, AJ, there's a lot of young referees that are coming into the game, and we need more of them. And as you say, we don't have a game if we don't have referees. And I will say, even though we might give it to them in NRL, in our NRL reviews and those sorts of things, the standard of refereeing now compared to when I was first watching the game across the 60s, 70s and into the 80s, the standard doesn't even compare, like from those years to now, where it's like the referees now are light years ahead of the referees of yesteryear. And that's with all respect to those referees, but they didn't have the time to put into their game like the referees do these days. Referees these days are athletes in their own right as well. So, sorry for interrupting there. I just wanted to mention it because not everyone follows our social pages, as crazy as that may seem, AJ. But hopefully, if there's at least one budding referee out there that hears this, then maybe we've made a little bit of a difference there. So, yeah.
I agree completely. And, of course, gone are the days of Craig whinging about Kelvin Jeffs in the middle. Well, back to what I was going to mention, and I think the major ruck infringement people get annoyed at is what we call appeal. You hear the 6 against say appeal a lot. Now, essentially what this means is in a gang tackle, so 2, 3, 4, the referees don't want them to go one at a time. They don't want to go one by one by one. This is more common in 3-man tackles when you see it. They want them to go 2 and 1, as opposed to going one at a time. That's just a key. When the officials see a ruck go one by one, that's like a kid in a candy store areas for them. That's the thing that they go at straight away. And then other confusing areas, more so about just like placing hands and arms on the ball or on the arms of a player in possession once the tackle's complete. You just got to listen to what the refs ask for in the vocab. And it's pretty simple when you listen to the referees. They'll say, roll out, hand off the ball. And if you don't listen, you're basically inviting them to blow it. And it's pretty straightforward. Go ahead, sorry, Craig.
I was just going to say, it's interesting you saying that about the peel, because I'm sure that for a number of years, the coaching was one at a time for the players to peel off. And
so they want them to go in a group scenario now. So they don't want them to go one by one, because that's just a slow ruck at the end of the day. And I think this has more come about more so in PVL ball than anything else. And, of course, that 2018 crackdown where we had, I think, 30 penalties one night at Shark Park. And then the other ones, I think, are pretty self-explanatory. Crowding's pretty common. Climbing over the player in possession once the tackle's complete. It's all pretty self-explanatory. So when people say, oh, what's that 6 again for? Or the 6 again's a lottery. It might look that way, but there's a method to the madness every single time. And I get that, like, some officials probably go a bit nuclear and almost give themselves a shoulder reconstruction waving their arms in the air. But I think the key to everything is education. And my perspective's changed too. I used to be a junior referee and I used to blow up at my own games when the Roosters were playing. But the key to it is just listening and really delving into the rule book and just having those explanations given down time by time. And what I think would help the game is, instead of what Annesley used to do every Monday, where he would throw his officials under the bus, why don't we get a Jared Maxwell, or why don't we get someone in a room with the media just to run through a crash course? It's not hard. That way your abuse is cut down, and instead of targeted personal criticism, we're criticising them for the rule taking and their interpretation of the laws.
Yeah. And look, I guess some of that is when we get a 6 again, we just hear ruck infringement.
Yeah. So normally, this is the problem with the commentators talking over the top of the game. Normally they'll go 6 more slow, and then you hear the announcement over the PA.
Yeah.
Like when you get, I know sportsy is cost arm and a leg these days, but like when you listen to clearly, like when the referees talk, like I say, 6 more flops, 6 more slow, 6 more hand on ball, and like you can pick it up faintly on the coverage or when you're at the ground barely at all, but
Yeah.
it's more so trying to pick up on the cues of what you see on the ruck and then attaching it to one of those bylaws that I was suggesting earlier.
You know, how tough would it be, because they're hitting the recorder for ruck infringement, you know, hit the play button, ruck infringement. If there was a recording that was like ruck infringement slow, ruck infringement hands, I guess maybe it's that. I guess it just becomes there's that many buttons there for them to push that you complicate the advising the crowd what it was for.
So that's actually done by the timekeepers up in the boxes. So the timekeepers listen to the referees over the course of a game. They're connected in as well to the referee. So we talk about multiple voices in the referee's ears. There's another one, potentially. So that's one that's in there. And then that's why they press the buttons, because they can hear them say 6 more 10 metres, and then they pressed ding, ding, 10 metres.
Yeah.
But I think that's a great idea. I think that's a really excellent point.
Yeah, because as I said, as someone that's observing it, I've hated the 6 again rule, mostly because I consider it to be like the old scrum penalties, because you could blow the whistle for so many things that were wrong in scrums. That's why they got rid of scrum penalties, because a referee could blow the whistle in every single scrum. That's just how it was. So there was some form of cheating or something that was just not done well in it. I don't think there was ever a clean scrum, like ever. Like when you think about it, there was always a loose arm, hands in the scrum, striking early, collapsing scrum. I mean, how many scrums collapse for a start? Feeding it into the second row. Besides, hands over the face and eyes of the opposing hooker, or those sorts of things. Not binding correctly, lock breaking early, halfback not retiring. Like, you could go on and on and on with scrum penalties, and I know there weren't quite as many things they could ping for the 6 again, but it just felt like, as you're watching it, it's like you think it's going to happen soon. We're about to get a 6 again, and it would come.
And I get the argument, I get the consensus about the lack of consistency, but at least it's not back in your heyday in the 80s when Barry Barnes is running 40 metres over the other side of the field to penalise someone for being inside the 5. At least you don't have that for the offside.
You've seen far too many old clips in your time, AJ.
Deep cut right there,
yeah. Absolutely. Okay, so that's pretty much it with the things that they're looking for. That is a big help to us. We always appreciate that, and especially as well when we're at the same game as you in lower grades or junior reps, and you're able to pass on a quick message about what some of the calls have been or what's been going on. So we do appreciate that, AJ. Thank you so much for being part of our first dedicated Junior Reps preview podcast for this year. We're going to be doing it on a weekly basis, so we know how much it's appreciated by not just Eels fans, but players, families, those sorts of things. So looking forward to doing more of these. Again, thank you, AJ. Wishing you all the best for this year, and I know we'll be talking to you many times through the year. And wishing sort of success for your Roosters. As long as it's not against us in a grand final.
We had 3 of those last year, mate. I don't think we could get any better than that.
Yeah.
We shared spoils.
Yes, we did split the results, I guess. So yeah.
Thanks, mate. Appreciate that.
All good.
And John, thank you for this. And again, thank you, of course, to our sponsors, Star Partners Real Estate, Auburn, Narellan and Parramatta Leagues, the home of the Eels. And thank you to everyone who's been listening. And go you mighty Eels.